Good morning, you guys. We're going to have us a great time. My name is Theresa Miller with the M&M Team Realty, and we are so excited that you've come to our Homebuyer Seminar. It's been raining and a lot is going on, but at the moment, it's kind of sunny. So what I want to do right now is I want to take the time for you guys to go around the room, introduce yourselves, and then tell us who invited you. You can tell we look alike, right? All right. So again, I am Theresa. I'm the managing broker of our multi-million-dollar brokerage and firm. We specialize in probate, trust, and divorce sales. Before I introduce my team, I just want to give you a little bit of statistics. Everybody is saying, is the market going to crash? What's going on? How are things? What's happening? And all of this and all of that. Mr. Soto is going to give you a detailed history of literally how the market is and what's happening. But what I want you to do is to pay attention. If you can see this slide, I want you to see that yes, home sales are down. There is no doubt. Interest rates are up, home sales are down. But I want you to look at the bottom line, the existing home sale prices. The average price is $738,250,000. The difference is only a 2% year to date. So they're not dropping like people think they are. They're just not. Unsold inventory. What that means is how many months before we sell all the property that's available to sell. And it's only 3.6 months. Imagine how many people in the world, at least let's just say Southern California, that's looking for property. 3 months is not going to work, right? That's why the cost of the homes are not going down like we think they should. Average days on the market is 32 days. So it's a little bit longer than they were last year. Last year, I mean, if you just blow at it, you were in escrow with 20, 25 multiple offers and people offering $200,000 over the listed price. So that's not doing that right now. So that's good for you guys as buyers. And the last point, the sales price to the list price ratio. What that means is the house is listed here and it sells here. Some people think, well, if it's on the market longer, then the seller will accept less. No. A lot of sellers in today's market, they don't have to sell. If I was going to sell my house, I would just be selling it to be selling it. I don't have to sell. So I don't have to accept a lower offer. 96.7% of those homes sold at list price or higher. So only 3% went down. So what I'm trying to tell you is they're not the deals that you think you're going to get. You can't have a home that's offered at $600,000 and think, oh, well, it's been on the market for 32 days. The seller's going to take $500,000. Not happening. Now I want to introduce you to my amazing team.
We were even supposed to be here. I'm a track coach, and so we were going to San Francisco, but they canceled our track meet. So I am here with you guys. This is like my 5th home buying seminar. So one tip to buying a home, I would say, because I've bought a home and then I've sold a home. So I bought a condo.
She's a
and
pro.
I sold my condo. I would say don't be afraid to start small, just so you can get something that you can actually afford versus waiting years and years for that perfect dream home because you may not buy a home then. I have clients that have bought homes and I have a client now that's been waiting since 2020 for the market. So if you can buy, there's never like a right or best time to buy. The best time to buy would be when you can afford to buy. That's the best time to buy. So that's
I'm going to bring up Mary. And Mary is going to share some exciting information with you.
Hi, everyone. Oh, good. My name is Mary King Batiste. I've been a realtor for about 2 years right now. And of course, I'm with the M&M Team Realty. And I'm happy that I'm with this team. It's something that I wanted to do for a very long time. And I want to help people. I've been through experiences of purchasing a home when I was very, very young, losing the home, and I was fortunate enough to purchase another home, and I'm very, very happy with it. I live here in the city of Bellflower, and I just love it. Today I want to talk to you about 7 reasons to own your home. Number one, it's the tax benefits. I can say that it has helped me a great deal. Years ago, they took away, we used to, on our taxes, we could claim all our interest on the credit cards and other things. And of course, mortgage interest and all of those things. And they took away a lot of it, but the income, the interest that you pay on your mortgage, that is tax deductible. So it's a great benefit. Appreciation. Um, your home will appreciate in value. In other words, it will go up. You buy a car or other large items, the minute you pay for it and walk out the door or drive off the lot, or it's, delivered to you, it depreciates in value. So a home appreciates in value and it gives you that extra savings. You don't have to tap into right away, and it just builds over time. Same with equity. Equity is okay. Again, the amount of money that is accumulating as far as the value of your home. I purchased my home that I live in now in 2011 at $365,000. Today it's estimated to sell for approximately $870 something dollars. So you can see in just 12 years or so, the appreciation in value. And then I have that equity, to fall back on. Okay. Again, savings, I already spoke to it. It's like a savings account that will always be there. So, and you have that. If an emergency situation comes up and you have to have money well, I say right away, it does take at least 30 days, I guess, to go through the refinance. I would suggest, that's me, but Mr. Soto can go over those financial things with you. Refinance and take money out as opposed to getting like an equity home loan or a second mortgage. I would recommend, refinance. Predictability. Basically, buying a home, the housing market, it is predictable in a sense that if you take care of your home and your property, you can expect it to be good to you, like I said, to increase in value and to provide that cushion for you and that savings. Freedom. You have freedom to paint your walls whatever color you want to paint, hang up curtains, or blinds. Yeah, you can paint the wall. I love purple and lavender and those kinds of colors. When you're renting, you're in somebody else's property and you can't do this, you can't do that. Noise level has to be down. I've always been that person that never wanted to live in an apartment building, especially with kids. Children need a yard to get outside and make noise. And so that freedom to just be able to go and come, I can leave my lights on if I want to, and just do what what I want to do. And so the freedom of home ownership, it has so many benefits and blessings. So that's a very important reason. And stability. If you have children, planning to have children, what have you, having a home gives your family stability. You're living in a house. Number one, you don't have to worry about somebody putting you out, so to speak. You keep everything kosher, as they say. You're paying your mortgage on time. You don't have to worry about somebody coming and evicting you. Your children has a sense of stability. They know that when they come home, they have a house, to go to. They don't have to worry about, going to an apartment building or wondering, do I have a place to stay today? And now we have 7 reasons to work with a realtor. First and foremost, the ethical treatment. We as realtors have to take ethical courses every year or every other year. And when you think of ethical, you think of honesty, you think of integrity, you think of a person, that you can trust, or people that you can trust. And so not only are we trained in regards to the real estate and the real estate market, but as a person, we want to treat people the way that we want to be treated. So there's no way I could stand up here and say, I'm going to sell you a house and be unethical. In other words, do anything shady, because I want that person that helped me, I wanted them to treat me right be fair, be honest. And that's what we are taught to do. Plus, it's a requirement, legal requirement. And so we have strict guidelines we have to adhere to. So we don't want to get into any legal trouble. We're going to be ethical. An expert guide. Again, we're trained in the real estate market, and we want to be able to assist you with our knowledge of the real estate market. We keep abreast of what's happening, the trends. Mr. Soto keeps us abreast of the financial information so that we'll know. And we just have tools that we're able to use to help you understand what it's all about as far as purchasing your home. Expanded search power. We have the ability to search what we call the MLS, multiple listing service. And we were just informed, or it was just announced that they have even expanded that. So we can even search, I believe we'll be able to search some out-of-state properties. I'm not sure right now what states those are, but nevertheless, we're able to expand that search if someone wants to invest in property, out of state. Negotiation knowledge. Again, our training and our knowledge of the market helps us in negotiating on your behalf. You have everyone speaking in your ear, do this, do that. They say they know this and they know that, but the question I ask is, it's okay, is have they purchased a home? Are they a realtor? Have they been trained? Have they sat through those classes and passed those tests? Are they certified or licensed and qualified to give you that information? If not, don't listen to them. Go to the experts. Okay, and lastly, we're your rock during those emotional moments. I won't lie to you. Purchasing a house can be emotional. You may not. Look at it. Really, it took me 2 years to find a home. But I'm going to tell you, I didn't want to come back to Bellflower. I had lived here, and then I had moved to Torrance, and my oldest daughter just arrived, but my other daughter, said, "Mom, just come back to Bellflower." And I said, "No, I don't want to come to Bellflower because you're planning on moving out of Bellflower, and I don't want to be there alone." But I decided, okay, I was on on Zillow, and I looked, and at these houses in Bellflower, and I saw this home, and immediately, I don't know how to describe it. I was just, this is my home. So I called my daughter and I said, if this house looks as good to me in person as it does here online, this is my house. And we made arrangements with my realtor to come, see the property. And I'm telling you, the minute I walked in, I knew it was my home. I didn't get everything that was on my list, but I knew I had such a peace, and everything just, happened. So 30, maybe 35 days later, I'm moving into my new home. So it's a great experience and an opportunity. Now, how agents are paid. As you can see on the top, seller normally pays the commission. And 50% of that commission will go to the listing officer. And then you break it up, 15% will go to the listing broker, meaning that's the seller agent. And 35%, to the listing broker, and that's the seller's broker, and 35% to the listing agent. On the other side of that coin, again, 50% of that commission is it's going to go to the buyer's agent. And so 15% will be going to the buyer broker and 35% to the buying agent. So the buyer typically pays no commission. And at the very bottom, it says the percentages in this chart are generalized and intended as an example. Real estate commissions vary broker to broker, agent to agent, community by community, and state to state. Now I'm going to introduce to you Linda Henry, and she's going to discuss further.
Hi, my name is Linda Henry, and I've been a residential realtor for over 15 years. And I've been knowing Theresa, our amazing broker, Yeah, and it's been amazing working with us, working with her because she keeps us on our toes, making sure we have all our classes and stuff done, and make sure that we keep all of our clients at a very high standard of what we do and we share. Okay, so the question you should ask your realtor when you're going out looking, when you're getting ready to search for a realtor, you should ask the question, how long have they been selling residential real estate? Okay, that's the first question you want to know. And then you want to know if they have a designation or a certification. Now, a designation or a certification that they should have is called ABR, which is Accredited Buyer Representative designation. Okay, and then you also should find out from how you want to be communicated with. So when you talk to your realtor, some people they use their telephones, they use their emails, but then there's others like me who prefer to call you on the telephone the old way, or to just give you a call and let you know what's going on. So you need to let them know exactly how you want to be communicated with. Some people like to do Instagram, Facebook, and all the other technologies. And so then once they find out how you're communicating with, that's how they'll make sure that they communicate with you. And then the other thing is you need to get their past references to see if you could ask them for some people who worked with them before that would give you the information as far as how well they worked and were they pleased with them. And so when you have a realtor, you have a buyer's agent and you have a seller's agent. So a buyer's agent is the one that works with the buyer, and of course the seller's agents work with the seller. And then you have what they call a dual agency. And a dual agency is a person that work with the buyer and the seller at the same time. And then we have what they call client versus customer. So when you have a client, you have the relationship between the person they have signed documents agreeing that you are going to be the designated realtor. But a customer is a person that you deal with, that you give the most high diligent. Oh, a customer is somebody that you talk with, but they haven't signed the paperwork as of yet. And then but you still give them the highest standards and to be responsible and be honest and ethical with them. So the buyer broker agreement, what is it? It's a legal and formalized document that works relationship between the buyer agent. And why should you sign it? You're signing this agreement just to clarify the expectation and the helps that you want to get from your realtor. So there's no right way or no right time to purchase a home. Don't be a killer negotiator. So what that means is you're trying to negotiate all the way down to the bone to get exactly what you want. You have to be able to give a little and take a little, like you said, because everything ain't gonna be exactly perfect. So once you get the house that you're looking for, you may have to just take your time and fix it up, or just stay in it for a few years and then decide to sell it and move on. So you have to plan ahead when you start looking for your home, for your new home. You choose it because you love it. And then you think about the appreciation, make sure you factor in maintenance, because a lot of people, they go out to get a home, but they have to realize you have to keep the home up. You have to make sure you check your plumbing, your electricity, make sure you change those things out every so many years. So when you don't factor that in, and only thing you look at is just, well, I'm going to pay $1,500 a month for this mortgage, but you always have to factor in the maintenance because it's always required, because sometimes you never know when a house may need something extra done. So as far as the insurance part is concerned, when you purchase your home, you always have to make sure that you have homeowners insurance. And when you have homeowners insurance, you have to know what it covers. Because a lot of people just go and they buy insurance, but they don't realize the insurance does not cover plumbing. It does not cover the roofing. It does not cover just the regular maintenance, because you'll call and say, well, I have insurance. Insurance is not going to take care of that pipe in your wall that you haven't changed out in 25 years. So you need to know what the insurance covers. The insurance does not cover earthquake. That's a separate policy. Question?
Well, so you have to get like separate insurance for earthquakes?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
that's kind of crazy.
No, because you have to look at it like this. So I meant to tell you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and I will elaborate on whatever it is. So when you have earthquake insurance, that's a total different department from insurance. It's the California Earthquake Authority. That's where you get your earthquake insurance through. Insurance company may be the carrier for it, where you make your payments. They call to make sure everything is done. They send you out your bill, and they will notify them when you have a claim. That's what the insurance department is for. So let's just say if you have let's just say Allstate or somebody, that's what their job is, to make sure that they provide all this stuff to the California Earthquake Authority. But when you do property insurance, you have to make sure that when you have your insurance, that you call and you make sure everything is done, because it does not cover everything. The insurance covers stuff that happened to your home. So let's just say you forgot to repipe your home, okay, and a water, it busts. They're not going to cover that piping. You're going to have to call the plumber. The plumber got to come out and do all the replumbing that they do. They're going to cover the damage that happened from the pipe. So if the water spread all over your house, mess up your carpet, your rug, your sofa, whatever, that's what it's going to cover.
So it covers the damage from your
right.
mistake.
Yes. So that's exactly it. That's exactly it in a nutshell. It covers the damage for everything. So if a car runs into your house or whatever, that's what it covers, the damage that happens to your home. So make sure you have a clear understanding. Make sure your coverages are right. When you don't know, you ask, what's the best coverages for my home? Because at the end of the day, a lot of people just say, well, just give me $250,000 for my house. But like Mary said, her house is worth $875,000. So why would you only have $250,000 coverage on your home? Okay. So make sure you don't just call and, I got insurance, but what kind of insurance you have? And how much insurance?
Breaks into your house and smashes your door and your windows.
That's covered under the insurance. That kind of stuff. So that's theft, fire, all that kind of stuff, wind damage, anything that's catastrophic or weather related, all that stuff is covered under your insurance. That's if you have the right kind, because sometimes they'll give you what they call, I don't know if I can say the name of these people, but they have an insurance company that gives you just a basic coverage that just do the very bare minimum. And if you have that one, you out of luck. I mean, they're going to give you exactly what they have, the bare minimum or whatever that may be. The bare essential. So you make sure you have enough insurance.
And so you definitely should factor that into your monthly.
Usually it is already factored in, because most people have their insurance impounded. And so what that is put in with the loan. Okay. And so when you make your monthly payment, they add the insurance and taxes as well. Good job. And then once you add that in there with it, so when you pay the $2,000 for the month for your mortgage payment, that includes the tax and insurance. But then there are also a time where people decide to use it separately. Like me. Where they want to pay on November the 15th on a month, you get a bill and it's due before December the 15th, and you have to pay your $2,559 for your taxes for this quarter, and then in April it's due again. And usually if your insurance is put in there, it's paid for the whole year. So you pay the whole year, you don't have to worry about it again. So they put it. I don't want to worry about it. Yeah. I include it in my mortgage. You put it in your mortgage. Say it again. Pay it and forget it. Yeah, pay it and forget it. Yeah, so that's a lot of things that people don't think about. They have to make sure they consider that when they're. Question? Oh, no, I thought you were going to raise your hand. But no, so that's what people need to consider when they're getting ready to buy their home. What to know about your credit score. Now, mind you, when you start your homeowner's process, please make sure you cover and make sure you pay your bills on time. Tell them again, girl. Please make sure you pay your bills on time. Because a lot of people get in escrow, they be like, okay, I made it now, I qualify, I'm able to get my home process going. But you have to wait till the whole process is done. No buying new furniture, no buying new cars, no going out. You can go look and have an idea what you want to put in your new house. But don't just say, well, I'm going to put a down payment on, I'm going to put half of it on this credit card before I can make this payment, so nobody else won't get it before my house is done. You have to make sure that you do not pay your bills late. You do not overextend your credit. Nothing should be done during that process. When you start your homeowner's buyer process, The next thing you do, you don't do nothing else until you finish. When they give you keys in your hand, then you can go down to the store, purchase anything you want, do whatever you want. But if for any reason you decide to buy something, it will kick you out of your home buying process.
Oh, so something major changes on your.
Because it changed your credit score.
Okay. So
now you got more debt.
So now we have to go through the process again.
And see if you make it.
Okay.
Because you don't know if you just barely skirted in on the first time. So if you made it if you made it the first time and you go out and buy something, like a lot of people want to go buy their new car to match their new house, and that's a big purchase. It changes everything. You don't want to do that. You don't want to buy nothing new. Oh, go back. No furniture. Who's that one? No furniture. You wait till you get your keys, then you go out shopping. But no, you can already have it set up where you want. So let's just say, for example, you already know what you want to purchase, and you've seen it all sitting there ready. So you just have it there, and you go, once you get your keys, you march down there and you say, I want this shipped today or tomorrow, whatever, and you send it over. But don't purchase it before. Don't put nothing on that credit. Don't do anything. But it was one little part that I did forget. They will be sending you a budget sheet, and this budget sheet is for help you stay on track with your bills. And the reason we send that is to make sure we verify your first, middle, and last name, make sure your email works, and to make sure you have all the documentation that we have prepared to send over to you. Okay, so that's why that email is sent over. So is there any questions for me before I sit down?
A little bit about myself, I guess. Again, my name is Glennis Selden. I am Theresa Miller's daughter. I have been a realtor now for 11 years, and I didn't really practice real estate in the beginning 11 years ago, so I'm kind of newer to real estate as far as being on the buying and selling side. So I've been doing that for about 5 years now. When my mom retired, she recruited me and said I need to put my license to use now. So I have been with her, working closely with her since 2018. Questions, so I guess I'm going to be going over what to ask your realtor, which will be one of us, when buying a home. And when you're thinking about buying a condo, you want to know, is it close to some of your favorite places? Is it safe? Inquire within the local PD. Is it economically stable? Is it building out? I know North Long Beach is building out right now. They're gentrifying. If you've been over in that area, I drove over there like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, wow, I didn't know all of this was over here, because I'm mainly in the IE or in Orange County. Is it a good investment? Buying a home is always a good investment, because you don't buy the home right away to sell it. You're always buying your home because it's going to appreciate. Most people buy their first home and they stay in it for at least 5 years. And in that 5 years, you're going to have some type of equity no matter what, because you're paying your mortgage down. Do you like what you see? The area, is the housing good? Are they close together? Or do you want space in between? Where are the schools? If you have young children, that will be something that is important to you. Are you commuting your children to school? A lot of times parents commute their kids to schools out in Orange County or out in Long Beach. Are you buying a single family home? Everyone wants to get a single family home when they buy their first home. You want that 3-bedroom, 2-bath type of home with the backyard and the front yard. Is there a pool? Is the garage attached? That's something good for condos, especially if you're thinking to go the condo route. Where is the parking, right? Is there underground parking? Is there gated community parking? Do you have your own separate garage? Some condos you do have your own garage or townhomes. Is it an open floor plan? What type of house would you like? I had a client that I just closed with in November. Most clients want open floor plan. And that's how the homes are being built a lot now, especially new developments, and that's how people are remodeling their homes. but she wanted the traditional home. She wanted her kitchen by itself. She wanted the dining room by itself. And that's really hard to find nowadays because everyone knocks that wall out. And it's just one big open concept. So it took us a while to find it, but is that something that is important to you? Do you want your kitchen and your dining room separate? Are you looking for a fixer-upper or a move-in ready? I know fixer-uppers now. The key to fixer-uppers, if you're first-time home buying, especially if you're going FHA route, is not a lot of fixing up you can do with FHA. They really want the home to almost be like ready to move in. You can fix up, let's say, cosmetic things, painting, but if there's a whole wall missing or the ceiling is missing, that type of fixer-upper doesn't fly with FHA. And a lot of times, sometimes first-time home buyers take on too much when they do that fixer-upper route. So is that something, how much are you willing to fix up? Do you want a 1-story, 2-story? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? The square footage? What exactly are you looking for? Get clear with that. Write that down. And you're going to be going out, seeing a lot of things. And oftentimes that changes when you're going through the home buying process. I know I had a client that wanted this. Then once we started going to look at homes, we was all the way over here. I was like, but it just happens like that. Are you buying a condo or a townhouse? Now, for me, the condo and the townhouse route was perfect for me for first-time home buying because I wasn't looking to have a big yard that I would be mowing or looking for a lot of things that I wanted to upkeep for my first time. So FHA loan limits are different in LA County and in Riverside County. I bought in Riverside County because the cost of living in Riverside County is a lot more affordable for first-time home buyers than it is in LA County. Like Long Beach, the average price of homes is around $725,000. And sometimes first-time home buyers' budgets are under $500,000. So be open to looking in other areas. How much is the HOA fees? Sometimes they can get crazy, especially in Long Beach. I've seen like $1,000 for HOA. I'm like, what is going on here? What am I paying for? And I've seen my HOA fees was $320, and I thought that was a lot because it was only a pool. So, and a laundry room. But is washer and dryer in unit important to you? I didn't realize how important that was until I didn't have it inside my unit. I was going downstairs with my laundry, going to the community laundry room, and it's not always as clean as you would like it to be. So keep that in mind. What amenities are included in the HOA? Is there sufficient storage in the unit? For me, it was just a carport, and then the storage was right there. What is that? That's enough for me. But if you have children or over time, you just build up stuff and you need somewhere to store it. Sometimes you can't store it on a balcony. Most HOAs are very picky with keeping things on the balcony, especially like bikes and things like that. So is this enough storage for you? Is there a private yard? Sometimes you get lucky. Townhouses, you have a private yard. Are pets allowed? Usually they are, just depends on the community. You can go to the next slide. Most times it is okay. HOA questions, one of my favorite things to do is talk to the HOA people. How are they? Right, where I was, the president had been there for a long time, and you know when they've been there for a long time, they're not open to change, especially if you're a young person coming in. I just got my keys, I'm ready to make some change. Like, what is going on? They like, who are you? And are you on the deed? Like, what? And that was literally a legit question that she asked me. So be careful with that. You know, get the CC&Rs. You won't get that right away when you're buying the home, right away when you're going through the process, but it will come through escrow. So once you guys make the offer and then it gets accepted, then during escrow, then we ask for those CC&Rs. We want to check to make sure the reserve funds and how much money is in there and is being used. One time, I had a client, we were buying in North Hollywood. She was buying a condo, and the reserves were trash. Like, they didn't have enough money to cover anything. And when you're buying a condo, the reserves have to be a certain amount because you're getting that loan. I don't quote me, but I know it's something about what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac or something like that. It has to be a certain amount of money. So for us, the reserves, they ran low on the reserves, and they had no intentions of making sure the reserves came up. So she ended up having to put down an additional 10%. So instead of us doing like 20,000, she had to put down 40,000, which is a lot. So and she really loved that place. We could have went somewhere else, but she really loved that place, and that is how they like get away with running with the low reserves. Now that is something we would have had to back out. If she said no, we would have backed out and we would have found something else. But yes.
What are CCNRs?
Yeah, covenant, conveyance, and restrictions. So it's the bylaws. It's basically what you can and cannot do in your condos. For instance, for us, for where I was, we couldn't have anything sitting like, you know how sometimes they have like the bamboo, you want to keep the privacy. We can't have it higher than the actual balcony. Sometimes they didn't even want it on the balcony, even if it was under. If they catch you, they'll tell you to take it off. They didn't catch me, but I kept mine there because you want that. You can see in between, and you want that privacy, right? You don't want to be out there looking at people and they see you. Sometimes they want you to have plants on your balcony because they're all about the beautification of the property. Sometimes they don't let you wave flags. So it's basically them telling you what you can and cannot do with the outside of the property, not what's going on inside your unit. We want to check for any pending litigations against the property, any special assessments. Special assessments meaning that on top of your HOA, so if your HOA is 320, and let's say they want to give everyone a brand new door or a brand new balcony, they're going to see how much that costs and divide it by however many units is, and it could be an additional $100 on top of the 320. And it could be for a year, it could be for 2 years. It's just however long that they stretched it out for you. Those are special assessments. So before I got to where I was, I think in 2015, they redid the balconies and the patios, and they took the screen doors off, and everyone just had regular doors. And so they did a special assessment for that for a couple of years, I think up until like 2018 or 2017, and I had bought in 2018, so I was barely getting in there without having that special assessment. You want to read how are the board members selected and how long is their term. Now they're selected because you have to vote for them. And it's really important to get involved when you're buying a condo because you guys set the tone for everybody else that's coming to buy after that. And so for me, when I was starting to, rally up the people at the condo, because you need half of them to vote for it to go, for them to get out. Like if you want the new people to come in, you need at least half of the owners to vote and make sure that we could pass it. So that's usually how it's selected. You have to have quorum, and most of the time where I was, they didn't have that. So that's how that president was able to stay in there year after year after year. And I remember having a meeting in her unit. I was like, is this even legal? Can we do this? Her unit was all nice and stuff. Not to say she's taking anything, but you just don't know what's going on when they've been there for a long time. They're set in their ways and they don't want to change. And that's not how the community is going to grow. So check into that. Read about, you want to ask questions about that. And then check how many units are owner occupied. Where I was, I think it was about almost a little more than half was owner occupied, which you want more to be owner occupied than renters because owners take better care of their property than the renters. The renters they don't care. They're going to have stuff just chilling on their balcony, even if they're not supposed to have trash there. The president is going to walk around and every day and make sure, but it's just different. You can tell the people who own their homes, their units, and I could tell the people who are renters. And so you want to make sure that it's more owner occupied, and we can ask that. Your realtor can ask the other agent of the where you're buying that home from, hey, how many is owner occupied? And then you can go from there.
Can you tell them about FHA, the condos that are FHA approved versus not FHA approved?
So sometimes some condos are not FHA approved. Thankfully, I went the FHA route when I bought. Is less down payment. So that was more affordable for me. And thankfully, my condo was FHA approved. Sometimes the condos are not FHA approved. For a while, I think they lost their FHA. They didn't want to fill out the paperwork to make sure that the standards were up to what we needed them to be when you're buying a home loan. Sometimes FHA requires certain things to be done for you to buy that home, and if that unit or that complex doesn't want to say, yeah, we'll do it so that more affordable people can buy homes, then that condo is out. And they could be FHA approved like 2022, and then 2023 they're not FHA approved because they decided that they didn't want to fill out the paperwork. And so sometimes you really have to be careful with that. Sometimes it says it on the MLS that it is FHA approved, and then we call and we get through the process, and Joe is going through it, and we're like, they're not FHA approved, and then we're like, we have to do something different. Like, you can't get it because it's not FHA approved, or you need to see if you can go the conventional route, which sometimes could be a little bit more. The restrictions are different with conventional. Credit scores are higher, things like that. So it's really important to make sure that those units are FHA approved if you're going that FHA route.
Good job, baby.
Quick question regarding the FHA conventional. I don't know too much about it, but so I know FHA is a little easier for like first-time buyers. If you were to say, as a first-time buyer, use the conventional at a later time, can you still use the FHA? Or is that like a first-time?
Yes. So you're a first-time home buyer if you haven't bought a home within 3 years. So you have those same first-time home buying privileges. So if you don't use your FHA loan, and FHA, I believe you have to be living in the FHA loan. That's the difference, right? You have to live there. Joe's going to go over this, so don't quote me. But you have to live in it.
You could use it 10 times.
Oh,
Right?
okay,
So
perfect.
FHA doesn't necessarily require that you be a first-time home buyer to use it. You can purchase multiple properties with 3.5% down.
Okay.
Right? And then when you have payments and keep turning them into rentals. I mean,
Perfect.
that's the power of leverage.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. The home inspection process, upfront buyer costs. Now, these are things sometimes when buying a home that people aren't aware of. They think all they need is their down payment. No, you need more than just a down payment when you're buying your home. You need closing costs. You have to account for that. And then upfront, meaning once we go into escrow, once we they accept our offer and they're like, yes, we're going to open escrow. These are things that you're going to pay up front. So you're going to pay for the home inspection, which is approximately $450 to $1,000, depending on the square feet of your unit. And this is paid by you. So your agent, myself, will call the home inspection company. Hey, I want to schedule a home inspection for tomorrow at 123 Main Street. Okay, this is my buyer's email. They will email you the actual contract and the invoice, and then you would pay that, and we will go on about the home inspection process. Property sold as is does not prevent the buyer from obtaining a home inspection or other investigations. Now, oftentimes the homes are being listed as is. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take it for what it is worth. You can still do your own home inspection. I highly encourage you to do a home inspection, even if you're buying the home as is, because this allows you to be able to know what is going on with the property. If it needs plumbing, electrical, roofing, like, it just allows you to know a lot of things. And sometimes you can negotiate. Everything is negotiable with me, okay? If they tell me that it's as is, I don't care. I am negotiating for my client. Well, my client want to know, can we get $5,000 seller credit, even though it's so as is? And most of the time, I'm successful at that part. So don't be afraid to ask.
So if you get that inspection, that kind of gives you more of that power to do the negotiation, because it's like, well, I got a professional inspection and da-da-da-da-da. So it does give your agent more of that power to negotiate.
Yes, but that don't mean that they're going to say yes, okay? I want to keep that clear, because they might say no. There's three. They can either say yes, we will do this. They can say no, we will not, because it is saying that it's so as is. Just because you got a home inspection don't mean that they willing to negotiate with you. And then, or they'll say, you know what, we'll either fix it, right? Or then they'll give you a credit to fix it. They'll say, we'll give you $500 or whatever it is to go towards fixing that. Now they're not necessarily, I want to make this clear too, because they're not necessarily giving you $500, right? That's going towards your closing costs. That means that $500 less that you have to bring in, right? Or $1,000 less that you have to bring in. Whatever it is that they agree to, that is what you bring in less from there. Because I had clients be like, well, they supposed to give me $1,000. No, I told you this. You know, they don't listen, but it's okay. So another thing that you're paying upfront is the appraisal. And that approximately is $400 to $600. It's paid upfront by the buyer. Now, your lender will order the appraisal and they will tell you the cost. And even if you waive the appraisal contingency, which happened a lot in the COVID era, the 2020, 2021, I don't really see it happening right now, but she would be able to tell you more about that. But a lot of times, I mean, if you want to be competitive, they waive the appraisal contingency. Even if you waive the appraisal contingency, you still may be required to have the appraisal. That doesn't necessarily mean that, because you still need to know how much the house is costing, and the bank needs to know how much they can loan you. Now, if you waive an appraisal contingency, and let's say the appraisal doesn't come back at what you offered $340, but the appraisal come back at $320, you're saying that I have $20,000 to cover that if in the case that it doesn't go to $340, I'm paying that $20,000 on top of that. So be clear when you're waiving an appraisal. I don't like to do that for first-time home buyers because, as Linda said, sometimes we barely getting in there. We barely got enough to even have the down payment, right? So really pay attention to that. There's other ways for us to be competitive. And then a supplementary tax bill.
Go back. Hold on.
The supplementary property tax bill. After the close of escrow, you may receive a supplementary tax bill. And if you have an impound account, you just send that to the mortgage company and they will pay it out of the impound account. If you don't have it, I highly encourage you guys to go that route. But if you don't have it, then that is something that you would be paying for out of pocket. Now, supplemental property tax, meaning like when you bought that house and what it was, and then I guess the value of it, they reassess it to make sure that it is
for the upcoming year.
There we go. They reassess it for the upcoming year to make sure that it's okay, and sometimes it's off. And so then they send you that. I know I had got one when I moved in. I was like, what is this? And it's pretty much, it's just letting you know the new taxes for the property. Send it to Joe. Send it to Joe and he'll take care of it. Impound, guys, impound your escrow.
I would like the beautiful, talented, lovely Sasha to stand up. Come over here and say a few words.
I'm Sasha. I'm a realtor. I have been in real estate for about 8 years now. I've had my license. I've been licensed for about 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And I have been with the M&M Team Realty ever since I've had my real estate license. I just recently purchased my first condo last year. I came to this seminar just like this, and I, was educated on the home buying process, and then I went out there and I purchased my own condo with Joe Soto. So that was a really big accomplishment for me, and I love it. Now is a great time to buy, so I really encourage everyone to, see what's out there, and we're here to help you guys.
So Dee must have had something to do. That rain is horrible. So we're going to give her a pass. We're going to give her a pass. She's my girl. So what I'm going to talk to you about is something that I can talk to you about all day. And Glennis touched on a lot of it. She was like on hit. She was reading my mind. She knew exactly what to say. I'm going to talk to you about how to write an offer that's going to appeal to the seller. The first thing that we're going to talk about is do not submit buyer love letters. Back in the day, you could write, oh, my name is Theresa, and I have 2 children and 2 grandkids, and my husband is a veteran, and here's a picture of us, and we really like the home, and here's our offer, we're doing this, that, and the other. No. Well, just in case, let's say the seller says he's a veteran, and the seller has some grandkids, and the seller has 2 children that happen to be daughters, and they just fall in love with my picture, and they pick my offer over the other offers. Well, that could be considered as implicit bias. It's biased because I like them. I didn't look at anybody else because I look at that adorable little grandchild they got. You know, and they picked that offer. So now what is happening, and it's been a few years where you cannot do that at all. No love letters of any kind. So when I take your offer, even if you wrote me a letter, I'm not submitting it. I'm telling you now, we ain't doing that. The next thing, as Glennis talked about, she talked about your initial deposit. It's called an earnest money deposit. And back in the day, you could put down $1,000, $1,500, or whatever. Now we want you to put down at least 3% of the purchase price. So if it's $500,000, 3% of that. $600,000, 3% of that. And you say, well, Theresa, why am I doing that? The reason why you're doing it is that you are showing that seller, I really want this house. I am a strong buyer. I have my funds. I have everything together, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So the larger your deposit, the better you have. The next thing, the length of escrow. Now, when you work with the amazing Joe Soto and his team, they can make it happen. Remember I told you earlier that Tara, my new agent, she just purchased her home. She did that from start to finish in 26 days. We would have done it in 15 days, but something happened somewhere. It had nothing to do with her loan or anything, just something, I think it was the termite, given the termite schedule. So when you work with us and our team, we can make it happen for you. So when you're ready to go, we're locked and loaded, ready to go. Length of escrow, 21 days or less. Contingency periods. Glennis touched on what the contingency periods were. You have 3 of them. The one she talked about was the appraisal. Don't waive your appraisal. Don't do it. Competitive, yes, you could do it, but all of us in this room don't recommend that you do. Sometimes you put so much money down until the lender will say you don't have to have the appraisal. Now, if the lender says that, then we roll with it, because whatever the lender says is gospel to me. The home inspection, she told you about that. You want to have the home inspection done within at least the first 7 days. Shorter is better. Just like she said, when you have open escrow, we're going to call the very next day. Full loan approval. Mr. Soto can give you full loan approval in literally as fast as 10 days. Now, there's something that you need to do. Number 1, when he calls you, you need to answer and talk to him. Let's just start there. Number 2, when they ask you for documents, you need to give it to them. Don't take 3 weeks to give them, I don't know, your driver's license. Give them whatever they need. The faster they put that package together, the better we look as your professional to say, my client is ready, willing, and able to go, and I'm going to stake my life on it. Don't make us look like mud. Don't do that.
Theresa?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know, probably Joe's going to go over this. Do you guys have a pre-package to just kind of give us?
What you need?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Man, Joe got some checklists and some stuff. He gonna send you everything. He gonna send you the link and all of that, and a bag of chips. Huh, Mr. Soto? Let's talk about the home warranty. Normally, when you purchase a property, you will get a home warranty. Usually the seller will pay that home warranty. However, to be competitive, remember Glenda's told you about competitive. To be competitive, the home warranty could be $350, $400, $500, depending on it's a condo or house and all of that. It could be $500. How about you pay it? You know, if you act right, we might pay it for you. You know, I'm just saying. Termite report. The termite report, the actual report itself, is only required for the VA loans, the actual report. Remember, Glenda's told you about property buying as is and whether things are negotiable. Sometimes the seller don't want to do the termite report, and we have to negotiate. We talk about that. And Tara's example, the termite report, I forgot how much it was. We negotiated where the seller would pay at least part of it. I have another listing right now that's in Cerritos, and that buyer says, well, you know, Theresa, we know it's as is. I think this one was like $3,600, something like that. Can you ask your seller if they'll pay some of it? Okay, sure. Will they pay half? It would really help. We won't back out if they say no, but if they do, you know, it would be great. So I asked the seller, and he said yes. So they got a credit. Remember, Glennis told you, I ain't putting it in your checks in your hand. It's going to go toward your credit, and everybody's happy. We're scheduled to close escrow next week. Next thing we're going to talk about, two important things: the escrow company and the title company. The escrow company is the middleman. They are the people that move your money and they move your documents back and forth. They don't do anything else. They don't make decisions. They don't give advice. They don't advise you on how to fill out the documents and the forms. That's what we are here for as your professionals. They are here to guide you. You know, now they'll tell you the basics regarding their escrow documents, but any disclosures, anything like that, you have to talk to us. Title company. The title company, you're going to receive title insurance. The seller has insurance, the buyer has insurance. This insurance is different from the insurance that Linda told you about. This insurance says that she's Glennis, she can buy this house. They've verified, you know, all the way down to past 10 or 15 years, you know, that she didn't go to some other country and do some crazy stuff and come back. Now she's trying to buy undercover. And the seller, that Mary is the seller. Mary has owned this property free and clear. There are no clouds. That she has no encumbrances, meaning she has no bills, no unexpected things, that she can just sell it and it's okay. We had another sale I did in Pacific Palisades where the buyer, the seller, I represented the buyer, the seller was selling this beautiful house, oh my God, overlooking the water, everything, like $3.8 million, right? The seller had a war with the HOA in that community. They had a small HOA. Sometimes it's called Melrose, but it's still a HOA. We have to pay a little bit. They were upset with her because they said that she was using the property as an Airbnb. And she said, oh no, I didn't do that. Not at all. They made a mistake. I'm going to fight. She'd been fighting for a year. The assessment, she didn't show up at court. The assessment, the attorney fees, and everything came to, guess what? $160,000. Yeah, that's what I said too. I'm like, oh, okay. And she says, I'm not going to pay that. So remember, Glenna said, we're strong negotiators. I'm talking to the listing agent. And I said, now you know we must have her pay this before we can close escrow. It's a cloud on the title. We can't close. So everybody back and forth. This went on for like 2 months. We even gave her an extended 30 days so that she could fight with her attorney and all this and all that. What do y'all think happened at the end? She had to pay it. She had to pay, and she did. Now, I don't know if they worked it out or whatever, but when you don't follow the rules and do whatever you're supposed to say, and then at the end, you know what she said? She forgot that she told her she didn't do it. She said, well, yeah, I was using it as an Airbnb. I'm like, what? You put us through all that? So that's what the title company is. They make sure that all of those things are taken care of. Not only did she have that, but she had back taxes, property taxes she hadn't paid. She had a whole bunch of stuff. Now, granted, she was going to get over $1 million when she sold, but she had to give up at least a couple hundred. Seller disclosures. Seller disclosures are very important. We are going to send you your seller disclosures electronically. Remember, Linda said that she's going to send you some stuff electronically through what we call DocuSign or Athenasign, any type of automatic signature software that we use, and you're going to be able to tap here. So yes, you can literally sit there, open it up on your phone, and tap, click, finish, done. Don't do that. Read it. If you have any questions, call us. That's what we're here for. Because at the end of the day, guess what? Your tap is your signature and your initials, and that says you read it, you understand it, you have no questions. No questions, right? Got that? No questions. So read it and make sure that you truly understand. We are here to help. It doesn't matter if you ask us 1,000 questions. I had another client, and every time I sent her a document, whether it was 1 page or 20 pages, she read everything literally word for word, line for line. And I love her because of that. Love her. She had questions. She took notes. We closed her sale of her property, and she purchased another one in Rancho Cucamonga, and she was amazing. So read it. We're here. It's okay. Okay, we talked about that. Examples of seller disclosures are your transfer disclosure statement. That's where the seller will tell you everything that they know about it. Or the seller property questionnaire. You're going to get a lot of paperwork, a lot, in addition to the loan docs that you're going to sign with Joe. We already talked about this. Linda did an outstanding job, so I'm not going to go over it again. But you're going to obtain your homeowner's insurance. A lot of times you can bundle your insurance, homeowner's insurance, with your car insurance. Look around, shop around. If you don't have anybody, I got a great person that I can recommend you to. One of the things with us as the M&M team, we have a lot of vendors, a lot of people that we've worked with for well over 23 years. So we have people that we can help you with that. After you've done all of those things, remember, you gave Joe everything he needed, and so he's Johnny on the spot, and this day 16, you are now ready to go to loan docs. You're going to get an email, you're going to get a video, you might even get a phone call from Joe, and it's going to say, congratulations, we are clear to close. And so the emails that you guys get, we get them too. So when we get those emails, we're like, happy. Oh, happy days. They're going to close. It's going to be good. So let me tell you. Remember, Linda told you, don't go buy nothing. You ain't finished yet. When you get clear to close, that's not the time. Don't do it, because guess what? Even though you got clear to close, they're going to check your credit. They're going to check whatever they need to check one last time. One last time. And then Joe gonna call me, Theresa, did you know Linda just bought a car? I'm like, Joe, what you mean she bought a car? I'm looking at her credit report and she bought a car, and we told her don't do it, and now the underwriter want to know this, and that. You know, the underwriters, man, the underwriters is God. They want to know your blood type. So make sure you stay clean, okay? But when you have done what you're supposed to do, you got clear to close, the escrow company, remember those are the middle people, Joe's going to send the docs to escrow. Escrow is going to do what they need to do to package them up and get them ready. They're going to call you. Okay, we have an appointment for you. You can come in. We can send the notary to you, whatever works for you. A lot of times the notary will go to the client. You're going to sign your loan docs. You're going to sign a whole bunch. So just get ready. You know, probably over 100 documents. It's a lot, about that thick. Once you have done that, they're going to give you what's called your wiring instructions. They're going to say, okay, now you need to send XYZ money. You know, whatever that balance is. Remember Glenda's talked about the initial deposit, your down payment, and your closing costs. She fought and she got you $10,000 in closing costs, and you put in your 3% down. So now you just need to bring in, I don't know, $15,000. You're going to know that. So you're going to go to the bank, you're going to wire the final monies, and then escrow is going to do what's called funding. That means they're going to send the money to the title company. It's going to go where it needs to go, and everybody's happy. You're almost finished. Still, remember, what did Linda say? Don't buy nothing yet. Don't do it. Anything can happen. The next day, depending on the county, Los Angeles County is usually the next day, you're going to do what's called record. Not you personally, but literally somebody is going to take the deed. They're going to go down to the LA County Recorder's office, wherever branch they are, and they're going to get in line, and the clerk is going to stamp it, and it's going to give them what's called a confirmation number. They're going to send that information back to escrow. Escrow is going to send us an email, and it's going to say, we are confirmed. Now, when we get that email, oh man, we're turning somersaults. Man, we're doing backflips and all that stuff. I'm going to call you. Guess what, Glenda? We are confirmed. Congratulations. You are now a homeowner. You can now go shopping. Okay? Then, after we receive confirmation, I'm going to come over with my soul sign. I'm going to meet you at the property. We're going to celebrate. I'm going to bring you my little Tiffany's gift that I got for you. And we're going to smile. We're going to make some videos. And then you're going to talk about me, and you're going to say how great I am and all of that. And hi! All of that in a bag of chips. All right. Any questions on that part? We're going to go over that a lot because that's like the meat and potatoes. All right, now I'd like to bring up the amazing Tiffany.
Hello. again. So I've been a realtor for 1 year. I'm pretty new at this. I'm going to thank you so much. I'm going to be talking to you about what you need to do when you are preparing to move. So first thing you want to do is make a list of everything that you need to handle. So that would be like throwing out items. You can go ahead and start throwing out what you don't need, because once you start packing up to move, you realize you have more than what you thought you had. So you want to start preparing for that. You want to start notifying the post office about your forwarding address, calling utility companies so they know of your new address. You want to also, you don't have to, but I highly recommend that you contact a moving company, because trying to pack up and move items with the help of your family and friends, it can kind of be burdensome, kind of hard to do. So I would highly recommend you hire a moving company to help you move to the new location.
I second that motion.
And that is it. I am now going to present Joe Soto, and he will finish the rest of the presentation.
Quick little ways to follow me on social media. If you have a QR code, you can scan it. I'm at the Joe Soto. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of that stuff, right? I post a lot of stuff to help educate you. So if you're here learning about buying a home, I tell you, I throw up resources on you. There's lots and lots and lots of information. Recently started a really cool podcast. I'm interviewing lots of cool entrepreneurs. So I'm constantly in a growth mindset. And prior to getting into the mortgage business, I worked for a little company called Walt Disney. And at Walt Disney, I was a corporate trainer. So I thought for a long time that I was going to work at the park and tell people where to go. And I was just going to work for the mouse. I thought that was it. Nobody else called it out, but I did. And I thought I'd work for the mouse forever. And then I realized that there was a ceiling on how much money I could make working for the mouse. And I realized I didn't really like just punching a clock. So I got out of working for the mouse, worked for a mortgage company, been doing that since '04. But my real passion is teaching and coaching and mentoring people. So I love doing classes like this. I say there's no such thing as a stupid question. So as we're talking, listening to me talk can get really boring. So if you have a question like you asked earlier, just ask. If you see something on the screen and you're like, Joe, that's French. I heard that that's all wrong because I saw it on the internet, or my cousin's aunt's mother's brother told me something different. Just say it, right? Because odds are if you're thinking it, somebody else is thinking it too. Okay? So you're not going to offend me. You're not going to throw me off. It actually makes it a little bit more fun when you ask questions, because then you might have something in your head that you want to get out. And you're like, finally, I got to get that off my chest, right? So it's cool. We're all friends here, okay? So I have an agenda. I like to touch over different points. We're going to talk about the market. We're going to talk about ICE. ICE is income, credit, and equity, or down payments, right? Those are the three most important things that you need to buy a home. We're going to talk about different loan types. We're going to tell you the difference between getting pre-approved and getting pre-qualified. And then you've gone through the finding a home process, right? That's usually the fun part. Looking at homes. Everybody likes to look at homes. Anybody been on Zillow recently? Like in the last 6 months? Anybody been on Zillow? Everybody loves looking at Zillow, huh? Zillow's so fun. Anybody love looking at mortgage payments on Zillow? Nobody loves looking at mortgage payments on Zillow. Yeah, that's me. I get to do that part. I'm one of these weird people that really loves numbers. I hate the aesthetics of homes. Neighborhoods, bedrooms, bathrooms, like it's not my love language at all. But if you want to talk numbers, payments, down payments, closing costs, cash to close, I'm your guy. Cool. So here's the big question. Anybody think the market's going to crash? Or waiting for the crash? Or heard about a crash? Everybody should have heard about a crash. Cool. So the truth is, nobody knows. Nobody last January would have stood up here and predicted rates would be 6-7%. None of us. They're not a person in the world, right? So nobody knows, but I'm the guy who goes with facts instead of feelings, right? I'm not very emotional. My wife will tell you, and she hates it. We've looked at houses. She's my worst client. It's a damn shame that this is getting recorded because she will know that. But she is my worst client. Very particular, super emotional, right? Oh my God, I love that house. We have to get it. I'm like, nope, the numbers don't work. She's like, it's only 10 grand. I go, it's 10 grand too much. And she's like, I'm like, she literally has told me, we're going to lose this house for $10,000. I said, no, they're going to lose the house for $10,000. I don't need the house. They're the ones trying to sell it. I don't care. So I am very black and white. So little thing called marry the house and date the rate. We're going to talk about recessions. We're going to talk about opportunities, right? Because I recently saw an article about Blackstone. Anybody hear the name Blackstone before? Blackstone, big hedge fund, is buying up lots and lots of properties to basically turn them into rentals so that they can rent them to us at a markup because there's not a lot of inventory on the market, right? So if Wall Street's out there buying billions and billions of dollars in homes, do they think it's going to crash? Probably not, right? Like they're not spending 10 billion to be like, my 10 billion is going to be worth 5. That's a lot of money. So we're going to talk about interest rates. And so when we say you marry the house and you date the rate, at the end of the day, when you buy a house, anybody here own a home in the past? Cool. So typically when you buy a house, we got used to interest rates being in this low little bucket right here. This was COVID. If you notice, when was the last time prior to this that rates were this low? Anybody tell me when that was? Never. Good, you're right. See, that wasn't a trick question. You got it.
No, I'm a banker.
That was good. No, it's cool. You can participate. Bankers love bankers. It's cool. Never, right? So that was like the first time in the history of the world it took a pandemic to get rates that low. And typically what you see is if you bought a house here, rates dropped. What do you think you did when the rates dropped? You refinanced, right? You either refinanced to a lower rate or you bought a different house. And then you bought a house here and then rates dropped and you refinanced. Or what happened if you bought the house here and then they went up? Well, then you waited and you refinanced when they dropped back down, right? So we use that expression where you marry the house because the price you pay for the house, like was it Linda? Who said the price of their house when they bought it 11 years ago? Mary, what was the price of the house?
$365.
Almost everybody. If you asked your parents or your grandparents or anybody, how much did you buy your house for? They will be like $82,000 back in 1954, right? Like they know that number. Very rarely do they remember what interest rate they got. Very rarely. And it's almost impossible that they kept that same interest rate for the 30 years of that loan, right? So that's why we say you marry the house. That price you buy it for, that's going to be locked in forever. You live in that house 20 years, that price ain't going to change. But that interest rate, like you see in my little chart, is going to change. That makes sense? Any questions on that? I'm going to ask any questions on that a lot because I need questions to keep this thing going. Otherwise, Joe Soto gets boring. Yes, thank you for taking the bait. Gentleman in the green hat.
Yeah, that's fixed interest rate. Right?
Fixed interest rates, yes. So the next thing we like to talk about is recession, right? Because the economy's been a little bit crazy. We're seeing lots of layoffs, right? Like you don't know. It's really weird because I looked at the beginning of the pandemic and like unemployment went way up, right? But now we're hearing more and more talk like, are we going into a recession? The price of eggs is like an arm and a leg, right? Like it was bad enough you couldn't get toilet paper, but now a dozen eggs is like impossible to find, right? Like, you can't be eating protein nowadays because you're gonna starve. So a lot of people say, well, if there's a recession, the economy's gonna crash and right? We don't know. So this basically shows you what housing prices have done over the last 6 recessions. And you could see that 2 of them, the prices went down. The other 4, the prices actually went up. The big one, which everybody focuses on, is 2008. Can you guys see those numbers? I guess you can. Is 2008 where prices really dropped. But what was different about this 2008? Anybody know? Anybody remember back then?
Everybody was just getting loans where they were.
You get a loan and you get a loan and you get a loan. 550 credit score, I'll give you 100% financing, right? Remember those days? That was everybody got a loan. Right? This market's different. So I think the thing most of us really look at is 08, right? Most people remember 08. I remember it because I like literally almost went bankrupt in 08. That's how bad the market was for me personally. I've been in the business since 04. Everybody remembers this, but the reality is typically when the economy is slowing down, we need housing. If you need proof of that, look no further than COVID. Because in COVID, when there was no hotels and you couldn't go out and you couldn't go see people and you were locked in your house, they brought interest rates down to keep housing going. And housing single-handedly kept the economy alive, right? So you got to remember that when in doubt, the government or whoever, it doesn't matter who's in the White House or whatever, we need housing, right? We need it to come back. So here's some stats on why this market is different than 07 and 08. Typically right now we're seeing higher FICO scores, right? Back then people were getting approved with lower FICO scores, back when anybody could get a loan. Back then a lot of borrowers were underwater. Nowadays huge amounts of equity have been gained through to 2022, right? So if you have 100 grand of equity and it's hard for you to make your payment, are you gonna walk away? No. You're gonna sell that house. You're gonna try to make a profit, right? Like you need to make money on that deal. Back then, more people had ARMs. So when you mentioned fixed rate loans, right? Back then, 36%, maybe even more, had adjustable rate mortgages. 3% delinquency rates. So a lot of people tell me they're waiting for foreclosures, right? I'm waiting for the foreclosures to come. I had a chart on it, but I didn't want to mess up Theresa's presentation. She yelled at me, right? But I had a chart, but delinquency rates are people who are behind on their mortgage, more than 90 days late, right? That delinquency rate is the lowest that it's been in years. Like that number, if I had a chart, that number would have been down here on the table. It's super duper low, right? In my eyes, me personally, I felt like when the government told people don't pay your mortgage because we're in a pandemic and we gonna take care of you, I thought that was the pandemic. I thought that's when the market was gonna crash. 100% I left framed. So what I did right there? I keep coming over to you, Brittany. Brittany I keep gravitating to Miss Brittany.
I keep co-signing with me.
Huh?
You're co-signing.
Yeah. But I really thought, anybody else think like that was the pandemic? Like they said, you couldn't go to an open house. People were going to visit. Anybody ever visit an open house during the pandemic? You did? You did? Anybody else did? Right? Like for those of you who didn't, let me tell you what it looked like. It looked like you bundling up. Right, everything was covered, and then you're gonna go see this house, but you can't touch anything. So it was like this. It was like, I'll offer 50 grand more, and you couldn't even open the kitchen cabinets. Like you had no idea what was happening. You were like, I love it. And you couldn't see people's reactions because they were covered up, and they were like, I love it. How do you know? I'm smiling. Right? No crash, right? So I bring this up because a lot of times people have fear and anxiety, right? And like, is it the right time? Should I buy? Like, again, I don't know. I just like to go by what I've seen and what I think we're going to see. So where is the opportunity? Any questions on any of previous market stuff? See, I keep asking so you can jump in. So where's the opportunity? Opportunity lies in inventory changes, right? So inventory is still really historically low. More days on market. People are in love with their loans, so there's less inventory. There's more reductions. Homes are priced right? So the one thing I say is this is the first buyer's market that we've seen in like 7 years. Like legitimate buyer's market. Like where they were talking about credits, I've got people getting $20,000, $30,000 credits to buy a house. That has not happened since literally 2015, 16. Like it's been a long time. So I joke that right now, anybody know somebody who bought a house during the pandemic? Did you say yes? Was that a friend did? And was that like a process? Like
I didn't know. I didn't ask her. She just said I bought a house in Moreno Valley.
Moreno Valley. So could be Sasha did, right? And it was tough, right? Like you remember, it was like making offers. And you're offering like your firstborn, and you're just trying, just say yes, please. I'll babysit your children. I'll help you move, right? Like whatever it was. But I always joke that back then you got whatever house you could get. It was hard. You had to make 10 offers. So you were like, I got one, right? Now you have more options. You can get into the neighborhood, the schools, bedrooms, bathrooms. Like you have, even though there's not a lot of homes on the market, you can be a little bit more choosy, okay? You don't have to overbid. At the end of the day, can anybody see that one? What does that one say? Anybody disagree with that? Right? 9% every year, like clockwork. 9%. Hey, congratulations, you've been here a year. Here's 9% more you get to pay me. Thank you, Mr. Landlord. And at the end of the day, the reason that you buy real estate is not for a shelter. People are confused. They think they buy a house because they need a place to live. That's not why you buy real estate. You buy real estate to invest and build wealth.
Yes.
That is the number one thing, okay? So you can leave your children's children an inheritance. So you can leave your children and your grandchildren better than what you were. That's the only reason. The fact that you get a roof over your head and you can get some tax deductions, cool, that's a plus. But the reason that you're doing it and you make the sacrifices is for your children's children. Any questions on that? Can I get an amen? Amen. Yeah, I love it. That was good for you people out there. All right, so we're going to talk about loans, and we're going to talk about the 3 different parts of loans. So this is where if you want to get some drink, you can, because this is where we're going to kind of bore you out. This is where we would serve you mimosas if we had drinks, but no, we're not going to do that. So when you're buying a house, it comes down to 3 things. Keeping it super simple for you guys, right? It comes down to your income, your credit, and your equity, which is your down payment. Those are the 3 things that loans and underwriting is going to be based off of. So how does your lender see your income? This is kind of hard to see, but there's 2 different types. So either you work for a company and you W-2'd. Anybody here W-2'd, works for a company? That's good. Anybody here self-employed, works on their own? All right, cool. So we got both. So typically when you're W-2'd, it's whatever the company pays you, right? Your hourly, your salary, however that works. But you could also get commissions, overtime, bonuses, right? Other parts of income. So if you're looking to qualify on just your salary or your base pay or hourly, cool, you could start your job tomorrow, right? I could hire, what was your name again? Deborah? Deborah. I could hire Deborah tomorrow and say I'm going to pay her 80 grand in salary, and she could use that 80 grand in salary to qualify tomorrow. Yeah, I know. She's like, I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to go stop being self-employed. However, if I hire Deborah and I said, I'm going to pay you 25 grand a year and 80 grand in commission, no deal, right? Because you need to have a 2-year history of overtime, bonus, or commission, right? Anything else, right away, right? Like boom, like you're self-employed right now, you could literally go get a job at Bank of America and get a salary 80 grand a year, and we could use that as qualifying income. Did you have a question?
What if you have a consistent over 2 years of receiving that commission?
Then you're good. So if you've got over 2 years, then we're typically going to average it out. Okay. But you have to have overtime, bonus, and commissions. You have to have at least a 2-year history, right? Then if you're self-employed, gets a little bit murky, right, Miss Deborah? That's where it's like, I make 100 grand of revenue, but I write off 90, so I only show 10 to Uncle Sam. Bro, I just had a lady, she was the greatest. She was in home health care. I really don't know what write-off she had, but she had 900 and something thousand dollars of revenue. And she showed like 8 grand of income. Like she literally wrote off 900 and something thousand dollars. And I was like, Lily, I don't know much, but I really think, and she'd been in home health care for like 18 years, right? Like, you're not running this business for 8 grand a year. Like, you're not staying doing this. But she's like, I just have a good accountant. So you can play the game, but you got to be careful, right? At the end of the day, when you're self-employed, what the lender's going to look at is what's left after your deductions. Mm-hmm. And it depends on how you're paid. If you're a Schedule C, if you're a corporation, if you're an LLC, there's different types of businesses, but that's what the lender is going to look at. Any questions on income? Can a retired person, good question. So if you are retired, or if you're on Social Security or some sort of pension, you can purchase a property. You don't have to be employed by a company. So if you have income that's coming in, you can still qualify to purchase. Good question. And there's no history required. So you don't have to be retired for 2 years. Like you could retire tomorrow, and let's say you are a teacher and you retire, and now your pension is X, seven grand a month. That income could be used right away. Because it's guaranteed, right? We would prove that it's going to continue.
Yeah, I have a question. I was wondering, do you have special programs and things for retired people? I'm retired from a county job, so I was just wondering, is there special programs and different things that I could use to just kind of finagle my way to a nice property?
There's different programs, and we're going to talk about programs that can help you with like down payment assistance, right? And closing costs. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. but nothing that would change your income number, right? Like the amount that you're bringing in is X. Based on that, you're still going to qualify based off of that income. It doesn't change. Like we wouldn't let you have a higher mortgage payment because of that. But as far as like down payment and closing costs, we're going to talk about some of that stuff too. Yeah, good question. Anybody else? Cool. How about if you've been in school? I get this a lot, right? Or you've changed jobs, because that happens sometimes, right? People are switching jobs. And so if you've been in school, like my niece is in nursing school right now, right? She gets out of nursing school, she gets a job at Chalk, and now they're paying her 80 grand a year or 100 grand a year or whatever it is. She can use that income right away, even though she doesn't have a work history, right? Same thing if you change jobs, like my example there with Deborah, right? You change jobs and you go working from, I don't know, Amazon to FedEx, right? Again, as long as it's salary or hourly, it's not overtime, bonus, commission, you're okay. Did you have a question on the school thing? No? That makes sense on the school thing? Because I get asked that a lot, where people are like, how about if my kids or whatever, you know, or I'm in a graduate program. Sometimes you're in a program and now your pay goes up because you finished the program. You can use the new pay, right? So I get that sometimes where it's like, oh, now I finished my master's, I'm making more money. That more money, that pay increase would still be okay. Cool. So next we're going to talk about credit score. So here's a little recipe of what goes into your credit score. Anybody use one of those apps? The apps, yeah. Which one?
Credit Karma.
Credit Karma. Credit Karma. Anybody else? Experian. Anybody else? Okay, they're all lying to you. Sorry. You were so confident with Credit Karma too. I didn't want to break it to you, but no. To a certain extent they are, right? Because they use different models. When they give you the score, if you read the 0 font, they will tell you that this is not a FICO score, right? This is like a freebie model, but it's good for at least keeping track of when things do show up. So for those of you who said you don't use something, you should, even if it's through your bank or through a credit card. The Wells Fargo one is wrong. They're all lying to you. They are all lying to you. But Joe, if I had $1 for every time I run somebody's credit,
It's $8.50.
and they go, oh, it's $800, and I pull $799. Teresa's an example. Theresa will tell me her credit's $800,
You know.
and I will run it, and it comes up $799. She's like, what'd you do?
Well, you did that wrong.
See? That's exactly what happens, literally. But it will be lower more often than not when a bank runs it, right? Same thing, usually if a car dealership runs it, it's usually not, spot on. But it's a good way to at least know what's reporting.
Why? Why?
Because you can see, so a good example is I just met with a client the other day, and he had a 790 credit score, and hers was 678. And I'm looking, she had one late payment in January of 2023. And I knew how it was going to go down, right? Like I knew I was going to get on that Zoom with them, and he was going to look at me and go, what you talking about, Willis? What happened to your score? What was it like? And we got on that Zoom, and I was like, so real quick, I think we should start with your credit. And he was like, and I told him about the late payment to Target, and he whiplashed her. He's like, what do you mean you missed the payment? So had she had some sort of notification, she would have known right away that there was a late payment. Or, again, making sure you're getting the reminders on email, like you have an upcoming payment. Just because sometimes things get put on your score, if you don't have any sort of monitoring, you might not know for months, right? Like how often do you have your credit run? Right? So something gets put on your credit in January, you don't have your credit run till November. 11 months of hitting your credit negatively. So having something is better than nothing. Quick tip on that is if you do like Experian or TransUnion, one of those websites, Experian or TransUnion, sometimes maybe even Credit Karma. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll sign up and then I'll cancel. And then they offer me like the freebie stay with me discount. So I'll stay for $7 a month, but I ain't staying for $19 a month.
Right.
It's going to be a recession, Joe told you. So I need to save some money. So sometimes that works, right? Like, hey, why not? So here's everything that goes into your credit score, right? It's your types of credit makes up 10% of your credit, your payment history, your debt utilization, your length of credit history, and the new credit, right? All of these are kind of pieces to the pie, right? I love credit. I think it's so interesting because it's not 1 + 1 = 2. Sometimes it's 1 + 1 = 17. And you're like, I paid down my balance, but my score went down, Joe. What happened? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea, but that was nice of you to do that. But this is everything that kind of goes in, and you can see, right, what weighs the most, your credit history and the balances, right? Those are the two biggest pieces of the puzzle. So how do you get your credit score up? I'm going to give you some tips on improving your credit score, because higher your credit score, the better your interest rate, right? Like that's 101. Lower credit, lower rate. So obviously pay down your balances. Next is, if you have any collection accounts, try to get what's called the letter of deletion. So a letter of deletion is, let's say you have a collection with, I don't know, a medical collection from somebody, Kaiser, right? You call them and say, I will pay you the whole amount I owe you if you delete it off my credit report. Typically, you can't settle with them, right? Like if you owe them $500, you can't say, I'll give you $250. You're going to have to pay them the whole amount. But if you get that letter from them, it is priceless, because that means it's coming off your credit like it was never there. That makes sense? Cool. You have to build good credit, right? So what's good credit? Good credit is balances below 30 to 50% of the credit limit. If you see that your cards are near maxed out, you could always call your creditor and ask them to raise your credit limit, right? They're always willing to raise your credit limit. Why? Huh? Yeah, because they want you to spend it. Yeah. They're like, sure, Mr. Soto, your credit limit's $5,000. We will give you $7,500. No problem. You're like, dang it. I used every bit of it. Improve your mix of credit. So for me, my credit took a big hit when I'm originally from New York. I moved here in 2001. And I only had student loan debt. I thought I was really bulletproof because I was like, all I got is student loans and I got cash. That was bad because apparently I missed the student loan payment in the move from New York to California. That was not good for my credit. But if you have a bigger mix of credit, cars, credit cards, student loans, right? Don't just have one thing, because that doesn't help you. You know, that won't improve the credit score.
They like a diverse portfolio.
Yeah, like you have to owe a lot of people money, right? And it's bad. And it's bad. So, and the other flip side of that, right, is like when I met my wife, she had like an 808 credit score. And we were like early 20s, and I was like, dang, what are you doing 808 credit score? But she had every credit card under the sun. I mean, she had like department store cards. Like she had a wallet that was like Linus's purse. I was like, dang, how you got that many freaking credit cards? But she had all these cards and no balances, right? That's what the bureaus want to see. High credit limit, low balance, okay?
Definitely wasn't me in my young years.
No. I was like, you gonna give me a free t-shirt if I sign up for this credit card?
Yep.
Yes, I'm in.
Then I used the card.
And then I use it for a cash advance. If we want to be totally honest, I did, because I didn't have no money. I was like, wow, Discover's going to give me $500 in cash at 26%. Hey, that was more than the zero I had in my bank account. So at the time, I got a free t-shirt and $500. I was like, hell yeah. I was stupid. But, and part of that is honestly looking back, right? My family, I have a big Puerto Rican family. My family didn't talk about credit. It was like nobody talked about credit or money. I didn't know any better, right? So now my kids know better. But at the time, I literally thought like, dude, I'm just going to fill out this paperwork. You going to give me $500 cash? Like, so crazy to say it now, but that's how a lot of people think, because nobody teaches us that, right? And then the last thing you can do is become an authorized user. So I've had a lot of my younger clients do this, where they get added on to maybe one of their parents' credit cards. And so ultimately, like let's say Theresa wants to put me on her Amex, right? Theresa, so normally I do this the other way, and I'd be like, let's say I'm Glennis's dad, but I don't want to be that old. So let's, with the gray hair, dang it. I used to make that joke and not feel old. Now, like with all my gray hair, I'm like, dang, I'm old, dude. My daughter just turned 18. I'm old. She sent me a text. She goes, I'm 18 now. Can I get a credit card? I go, no.
Right.
But what she can do, and it's a good example, right, is I can add her to my American Express, right? And I could take her and put her on my Amex that I've had since, I don't know, 90-something. And now that will report on her credit. So she's 18 years old. She was born in 2005, right? Like her having an account that's been around since, that's an account that's been around since 98. Like she wasn't even alive. How does she have a history that long? But the bureaus haven't picked up on that yet.
Oh, wow.
And they give you the boost in your score for having that history. So when you do something like that, it helps with types of credit, payment history, debt. Like it helps with all of that. But the big one is length of credit history. The good thing about that is it can give you all of that. The bad thing about that is if I put my daughter Brooklyn on my credit card and then dad decides to go deadbeat and not pay it, well, now Brooklyn's credit's going to get impacted.
So me being fresh out of high school and being stupid, knowing I didn't have no money, I had credit since 18.
Yeah.
That's hurting me a little bit.
It's good that you've had a long credit history, right? I think the key is getting those balances, those credit limits up, and the balances as low as possible. But I don't think that'll hurt you because the longer you have credit, it's good. That's why parents and grandparents typically have higher credit scores, right? The reason that wives have higher credit scores than husbands is usually because of diverse credit, right? They have a Macy's or a Kohl's or whatever, department store cards where Victoria's Secret, right? Like, I'm not going to roll into a Victoria's Secret and be like, I'd love a card, right? Like, that's like, if I did, my wife would be in trouble. If a Victoria's Secret statement came to my house, it'd be a divorce court. She'd be like, what are you doing? That's not good. Any credit questions? Because I know people always have some sort of credit questions. Any questions on credit?
I don't really know if I have a question, but like I was telling my brother earlier, like I'll pay something and then it's always fluctuating. It's like, oh yeah, you increased 17 and it'll be like, it's been decreased 9. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, how is that, how do you fight that battle? Control it or fight it? Yeah.
So the best way to keep it is to always keep the balance, even though you pay it off, right? Like, so let's just use $1,000 limit as an example, right? So let's say your limit's $1,000. You use $600 every month and pay it off. You're like, cool, I'm paying it off. But what happens is the $600 balance, statement balance, is what gets reported to the bureaus. So the bureau sees you're using 60% of $1,000, right? That could hurt you. So you always want to keep the spending below 50, if you can 30% of the limit, because that's what's going to get reported every month. So some months you might see where it's like, hey, I only used $500 on the card. It reported better than if my balance was higher, maybe it reported lower.
Yeah.
You're thinking, I paid it off, what does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, I always pay a lot more.
Yeah.
But it's just always like,
there's so many moving pieces that it's so hard, right? I have a program that's actually super cool that allows me to, like, if I run your credit, I could actually tell you, pay $500 down on this card, pay $300 down on this card, pay $800 down on this card, right? That way you pay off the right stuff. But if you're paying it off monthly, that's really, really good, right? That really helps. The key is, even if you pay it off monthly, try to keep that statement balance below 50%. Okay. That's like, that will always make sure that you're building good credit, right? Like, and it's funny because I say it, but I got into an argument with Wells Fargo because, like, I was using so much for my business. I'm like, dude, this is hurting me, right? Like, I gotta stop using the dang Wells Fargo. I was like, hey guys, I'm gonna cancel you unless you raise my limit. And they were like, I'm just telling you this. Like, I'm gonna cancel it today. They raised my limit because I didn't want to max it out every month, right, or come close to it. Is there a question?
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Joe's testimony.
Yes.
We did this for me. So we ran the credit, and there were like a couple of cards that needed to be paid off, and we paid those cards off in full, and everything changed. Like what we brought to the closing table changed. Like it was like a huge difference. So this was great, running the credit, seeing like what can we tweak or what can we pay off, what programs can we, enroll ourselves in. So we did that for me.
Yeah, and it helps. I mean, honestly, it's more work on the loan side, like the lender side. Like I had a client recently with a small collection, and they came to me from somebody else, and I was like, hey, let's get rid of this small collection. Let's call and see. And they did. And their score shot up like 80 points. It's like night and day, right? The difference between a 680 and a 740 is like night and day. So again, just having somebody who's going to do that sort of work and not be scared, right? Not be like, oh, this is extra work. Like, dude, you want to be in the best position to make the biggest purchase of your life. You know what I mean?
I tell anybody that I send to you, because we get calls and they ask us the same question. Well, should I pay off this? Should I pay off that? What should I do? I said, talk to the lender. He'll tell you exactly what to do. Because things that you might think you need to pay off, he's going to say, no, do this and do that.
Yeah, like installment debt. Installment debt, for example, cars, if you bought a Peloton, you bought a mattress, you bought a vacuum, got a rainbow, anything that's installment debt, right, that you pay on a fixed period, those don't help your credit as much as paying off your credit cards, right? So if it's, do I pay extra on my car or do I pay extra on my credit card? Pay extra on the credit card, right? 100 times out of 100. Any other questions on that? Credit's always a good one.
Yeah. What was the app you was talking about?
And then the third piece of the puzzle is your down payment, right? Income, credit, down payment. So where do you find your down payment? Unfortunately, nobody's got a money tree, right? We all wish we had a money tree. Like most of us, I don't have a family member who's willing to give me $1 for a down payment on anything, right? Like, so it's just save, and pull from where you can. I just had a client who worked for the VA and been there like 7 years. No, sorry, Border Patrol. He was a border agent, worked down in San Diego. Been there like 6 years. Thought he had no money in his retirement account. He had like 80 grand. He's like, dude, I got 80 grand in here. I'm like, well, let's use it. Because it was probably 110 last year, right? But it all went down. So I said, let's just use it. So, you can use it from all different places, right? Your traditional savings, your 401ks. Now, some people will say, do I take money from my 401k or not? 2 years ago, I would have said maybe no, right? But then everybody's 401k took a beating. Anybody here have a 401k? Anybody's 401k take a beating? Yeah, stupid 401k. So I felt like a superstar when it was green every month, right? Then it started going down. It was like, wah, 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 wah. Nowadays, like if I ran that investment calculator for you and I was like the money in your 401k versus the money in your house, the house wins 100 times out of 100, but when your 401k is down 20%, it wins 1,000 times out of 1,000. And knowing what you can pull in the repayment terms, right? Every plan is different if you're pulling from in a retirement account. You can get a gift. If you're getting a gift, make sure you have proper documentation, no cash, right? Cash is good in everything but mortgages. In the mortgage world, we don't want to see cash. And then there's down payment assistance programs, which we're going to touch a little bit on. And those are programs that are really put together by the state to help you with down payment and closing costs, right? Because a big part of the equation is how much money do I need to put down? And even, I think as early as 2 days ago, somebody hit me up on Instagram and was like, I'd love that loan, but I don't have 20% to put down. And I'm like, well, you only need 3.5. And he's like, what? Huh? You want to go? Yeah, go ahead. Brittany's going to tell us about a little program.
Guys, I am a customer of Sasha Road, soon to be client. So I'm a commercial banker, so just like Joe, I'm a numbers gal, but I'm on the complete opposite side of the lending world. I work on getting you loans to buy commercial properties like the ones that we're in. It's two different worlds. So I'm sitting at this table with you guys, learning just like you about how I ask her questions every single day. It's just crazy how different it is, and what you guys need to get a loan for a consumer purchase versus a commercial purchase. But I'm a commercial banker. I've been, blessed to make really great money, but I have a spending problem, which is the reason.
Oh, that's why you got that nice hat, a fancy gear.
I've got a very big spending problem, and now all of a sudden I'm like,
that is so funny.
When my best friend buys a house before me, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Like, congratulations, but I'm like, hey, now you gotta help me. So, but yeah, the down payment, believe it or not, is an issue for me. I have to talk about this program because I work for Bank of America. Sasha is the one that's being tapped in with a lot of our lending officers at the bank. M&M Realty, all of the agents here can assist you, not to take away from Joe. I'm probably
She's stealing my thunder right now.
No, but honestly, I'm probably going to be going the Joe route. But let me just talk to you guys a little bit about the
Yeah, because they have a really unique
program.
little program, right?
Yes, it just got officially launched in December of last year, so it's pretty new on the market. We don't know how long this program is going to be going on, but just a lot of banks right now are seeing the slowdown and people coming to us for loans. So this program is specifically designed for individuals to basically help fight gentrification. So what they are wanting to do is try to promote for buyers to purchase in communities that are at least 51% people of color communities, and that's typically Hispanic and Black communities. So if you go to realestate.bankofamerica.com, realestatecenter.bankofamerica.com, you can see a lot of information about these programs. They're specifically designed to assist with down payment assistance. So this particular program is actually going to give you, in the state of California, $15,000 towards your down payment costs. And that includes zero costs. Just a couple key points. The only catch-22 to this program is you are only able to purchase in zip codes that are considered 51% people of color communities based off of the Census Bureau. So everyone who's filled out a Census Bureau document, I don't know, most of us don't fill it out.
There's a website. There's a website for that.
Yes, there's a website, and you can kind of take it. But you could probably, what I've been doing with Sasha is just kind of like, I've been doing it off the top of my head. Like, okay, North Long Beach is one where you'll see a lot of properties there. Compton, you'll see it in Downey, Southgate, Linwood. Of course, a lot of the parts of South Central LA. If you don't mind, this can be an investment real estate for you. It's for first-time home buyers. So it's a first-time home buyer, or again, the 3 years.
3 years.
If you haven't been borrowed for a real estate in 3 years. And pretty much there is an income limit. That income limit is pretty high based off of a combined income, and it's off of your AGI, which is in your W-2 or you're self-employed. But it pretty much gives you that amount for most. That $15,000 can assist you. There is a price limit, so it's about, I think, based on what I've been seeing, about $650K. You're probably not going to see a lot of the desirable properties, but again, if you aren't willing to go into something where you have to fix it up a little bit, but there have been some beautiful homes in that category. So if you want to go that route, I know a very prominent banker right now that is going to take advantage of this program. She is a bank employee of Bank of America, and she's wanting to buy a duplex with us for an investment property. So she's like me. A lot of us millennials, we're okay paying our high rent. Like, we're just like, okay, let's do it. But, we finally like, okay, let's kind of take advantage of this time. Just to touch on the rates, because we get a lot of this information. Rates will continue to climb, not as dramatically as they have in the this previous year, but they will continue to climb a little bit this year, and probably be expected until we can get the inflation leveled out. The unfortunate thing about banks is that we increase rates to decrease inflation. So this is a whole economy thing. If anyone's taking economy courses, then this would make a lot of sense. But we had a lot of liquidity and cash that was poured into the economy during the pandemic, and that is what's causing the inflation. So when dramatic inflation happens, we have to increase interest rates to level that out. There's a formula to that. I don't know, I'm not an economist, but yeah, so that's pretty much it. So yeah, you guys are right, that now is the time to buy. So this neighborhood lending program, anyone in M&M Realty can connect to, if you don't decide to go the Great Joe route, and you want.
We're going to go over additional programs too.
Yes.
There's lots of programs available,
There's
right? I
lots
wanted
of
her to
them.
talk about it because I think knowledge is power, right?
Yes.
And so the more you know, the more equipped you are, especially when
Yes.
you're spending, like when you add up the interest, you spend $1 million.
Exactly.
Like, let's just be honest. So it's a lot. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing it, Brittany. Talk about down payment, your buying power. We're going to skip that. That's more in detail. So when you're buying a house, I think we touched about closing costs, right? Did you go over closing costs?
Yes.
Okay, so I could skip closing costs, but what goes into...
Glennis is going to get them closing costs. I'm going to get them closing costs.
Everybody gonna get a closing cost.
All right. So what goes into a mortgage payment? And I get asked this a lot, right? Because what goes into the payment, right? So you have your mortgage payment. So the problem with calculators like Zillow and Redfin and Trulia and all of those is they don't always have accurate insurance and taxes. It's the biggest issue that you run into, right? So you go, prime example, I had a client who was a banker, surprisingly, looking at a house for $2.5 million, told me that the taxes were like $1,800 a year. And I go, well, that's wrong. He goes, it says it right here on Zillow. I go, you think your $2.5 million house? He's like, it's 18. He's like, Zillow says so. I go, come on, man. But I had to explain it to him, right? And so when you're buying a house, you have your principal and interest, you have your property taxes, you have your homeowner's insurance and your mortgage insurance. So mortgage insurance is PMI, private mortgage insurance. Anytime you don't put 20% down, you have PMI. Homeowners insurance is Farmers, State Farm, AAA, Geico, whatever that is. The rule of thumb, and I have a little chart, if you're putting a minimum down payment for every $100K that you finance, it's about $800 a month. Right? Don't worry, I got a better slide right there. Oh, but wait, there's more. So little cheat sheet, right? For every, if you're financing, for example, a $300,000 loan, you're looking at about $2,400 a month. Right? If you're financing $800,000, you're at $8,200. 62. Sorry, my vision. It's blurry, right? It's not just me. Okay, I'm not crazy. U.S. dollars. But that includes taxes, insurance, and the whole 9 yards, right? That's based off of today, right? And so it's a good little kind of cheat sheet that you can have to know more you put down, different programs. Like those numbers will change, but I always like to try to pump it on the high end. Just so you have an idea of like, okay, if I'm borrowing $600,000, I'm probably looking at like $4,000, $4,500, somewhere in that range, right? Including everything. Doesn't factor in what your tax benefits are, what your appreciation is going to be, but it's just a kind of overview number of saying, all right, this is kind of what the number looks like. There's different types of loan programs. There's FHA loans, there's conventional loans, VA, and then there's jumbo loans. Anybody here ever serve in the military? Eligible for a VA loan? You're eligible for the VA loan? Thank you for your service, even though you're an SC fan. Where'd she go? The SC? I was supposed to give her a hard time.
Oh, Brittany.
Thank you for your service, though. I appreciate you. VA loan is the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world. No, I'm anti-churches. I was supposed to give you a hard time about being a Trojan fan.
Give you a hard time.
Just her, not you. You're okay. Just her. I know, it's on his shirt. It's on his shirt. I only said it because he's on his shirt. That's the only reason I said it. I was gonna joke that you were a UCLA fan, but I couldn't like reel it in. So I'd be like, but I forgot to. But the VA loan's the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world. If you're not utilizing it, it's literally cheaper than renting because you don't have to put any money down. You typically, if you work with somebody on the team, you're not going to have closing costs. Like all you're going to be paying for is moving expenses. Versus if you rent an apartment, what do you have to pay when you rent an apartment? First, right? And so you're renting for $3,000 or $3,500. Now you're in the whole $7, $8, $9,000. Like I don't know, I could pay $9,000 to rent the place, or I could pay $0,000 to buy. I'm not really good at math. See, he laughed. I'm not good at math. I'm just throwing it out there. I'll give you high level the difference between FHA and conventional, right? FHA, most people will tell you when they think about first-time home buyers, a lot of people think you have to be a first-time home buyer to do an FHA loan. Like I said, you can get multiple FHA loans over and over and over, even if you've owned a home, right? The difference between the two programs is FHA is regulated by the Federal Housing Administration. The guidelines are a little bit more relaxed. Lower credit score, allow you to borrow a little bit more relaxed guidelines. And they'll let you put as low as 3.5% down. Conventional loans, you could actually put between 3 and 5% down, but conventional loans are based on risk. And so what do I mean by risk? Lower credit, higher risk. Lower down payment, higher risk. So your rate, when I say risk, I really mean rate. That's like lender talk for rate. So if you put 5% down, your rate is higher than somebody who puts 25% down. That makes sense? That's a conventional loan. On an FHA loan, it doesn't matter. If you have a 740 credit score, you pretty much have the same interest rate as somebody who has a 680 credit score, because the Federal Housing Administration regulates and guarantees that loan, right? Is one option better than the other? It depends, right? Everybody's situation is different. I always like to look at both situations to figure out what's best for you, because you might be better off conventional, you might be better off FHA, you might be better, like, it just varies. Everybody's situation is different. No lender should say you should do only this. It's like, hey, here, you should do FHA, but here's what conventional would also look like. Or here's why you shouldn't do one over the other. Does that make sense? Yeah.
With the FHA, you mentioned if you purchased a house previously, it was like 3 years or something like that, you still qualify for it?
You can still qualify, yeah.
Does it refinance, reset that clock? So if you refinance that property within 2 years, does that knock you out? Okay, so it's like perfect.
So you could buy a home today, right, FHA, and technically buy a home next year, FHA, right? There's no requirement. The only time you really run into the first-time home buyer requirement is when you're utilizing special programs. So if you're utilizing like Brittany's program or some of the down payment assistance programs that we're going to touch on, those programs you can't have owned anything. Like, I couldn't have been on the title of my mom's house. I wouldn't be eligible, right? So you got to even be careful about that, because sometimes your parents might say, hey, let me put you on the house. And you're like, okay, cancel Christmas, it's over, right? You still qualify for an FHA loan, right? Or a conventional, but you may not qualify for any of these special down payment assistance programs.
So those programs, to touch more on that, so are those programs exclusively only eligible for first-time home buyers, like initial first-time?
99.9% of them.
Years or anything like that?
Yeah, 99% are first-time home buyers. But the definition of first-time home buyers, and it's so funny because I'm going to make a video on this, is you can't have owned a home for 3 years, right? That's for 3 years. Yeah. So let's say you owned one in 2010, and you sold it in 2015, right? But you haven't bought anything since. You're now considered a first-time home buyer.
So technically nothing in your name.
Nothing in your name for 3 years. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, right? Nothing in your name. Let's say you sold in 2010, and then your mom said, hey, I want to put you on the title of my home just to protect my house, right? And she did that last year. You wouldn't be considered a first-time home buyer. Even though you're like, wait, I don't own the house, like I'm not on the loan. Once you're on title, you have ownership interest. That could hurt you. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah, really good question though. That's a really great area, right? Because everybody's like, what is a first-time home buyer? And then jumbo loans are anything over $1 million plus, right? Jumbo loans, when you hear the word jumbo loans, just know crazy strict guidelines, right? You need a lot of reserves, higher credit score, larger down payment. That's considered a jumbo loan. So when you see these people that are buying homes that are like $1 million or $2 million, right? Sometimes they have larger down payments because they sold a previous property, right? Or you need to have a lot more assets when you go into the jumbo world, right? It's just a different set of guidelines. Any other questions on these loans? Kind of high level, but I just want to familiarize you guys with the terms, because again, it's a lot. We've gone over a lot of information. It's information overload, but
for all the different loans, are one particular loan just adjustable rates versus fixed, or can you do, is it a mix?
That's a great question. So you could do an adjustable FHA, you can do adjustable on any of them, right? Any loan can be adjustable, but I mean, I'm anti-adjustable loans personally, right? Because I remember in 07 and 08 when people's loans were going from 6% to 12%.
Exactly.
And there's nothing you can do, right? You're just sitting there going, you get a statement in the mail that says your payment went from $3,000 to $4,800.
Yes. I lived that.
So,
that happened to me.
Yeah. But these, you can do adjustables or fixed, either one. Good question. ARM, yeah. ARM is adjustable rate mortgage. Mm-hmm. Yep, good question. So let's talk a little bit more about down payment assistance programs. So down payment assistance programs, kind of like what Brittany had mentioned, are different programs that are available to you to help you with either down payment or closing costs, right? And so pros and cons. I like to say, if it sounds too good to be true, it could be, and there's always good and bad, right? They're going to give with one hand, they're going to take with the other. So what are the pros and what are the cons? The pros are that you get into the game faster, right? Instead of saving the money for a down payment, I just had a family, maybe it was like, it was during the pandemic, so it was like 21. They had bought a home in like 2010 or 12. They bought a little place in Corona using a down payment assistance program, sold it, bought a house in Anaheim, right? But they didn't have the money for the down payment at the time. So they utilized the program like this. So it allows you to get into the game faster. It helps you come out of pocket with less money. So some programs that you see come in with 1% down, right? Or 0 down because you're able to get credits for closing costs. These programs will actually help you make up the 3.5% down, and in some cases give you money for closing costs, right? So it really takes the cash out of pocket way, way down. It really, really does. The cons are typically the interest rates are a little bit higher. Typically the guidelines are a little bit more restrictive. So if you're doing a regular FHA or conventional loan, just to use round numbers, right? You may qualify for $600,000. But because these programs have more restrictive guidelines, you may only qualify for $550,000. Right? So the amount that you can purchase, because you got to remember, if we're going to give you something, we want to protect our investment. Right? So they always have different sets of guidelines. Every program has different guidelines that they underwrite to. There's income restrictions, and I'll show you.
Yeah, I'm sorry to mention, Sasha just reminded me, it is a median income limit on the program I talked about. It's a good point. That is based off of the income of the community you're looking to purchase in. So as you can imagine, if there's less income being made in that area, then that's going to lower the income limit. So a lot of times, a lot of couples, if you're trying to look to buy with someone else, that's going to, so good point, which is why most of us have to go the Joe route.
Yeah, well, this program particularly, it's called Cal HFA. Like Orange County, the income limit's $221,000 as a couple. Right? LA County, I think, is $185,000 as a couple. Right? Like that's a high number. In some areas, you might see that it's $70,000 as a couple.
Income limit as what you have to qualify?
No, the max you can make. Good question. The max you can make. So in some areas, it might be you can't make more than 68, right? Because I've seen those, and I'm like, you can't get a house if you make less than 68, right? Like it's going to be really hard. As a couple, you probably, if each of you make 50, right? You're at 100. Yeah, you're already up. So this particular program has the highest income limits. That's why I always like to share it. And highest, like there's really no cap on how much you can buy. You can buy almost up to $1 million house under this program. The catch is you can't buy units and you can't have a non-occupying cosigner, right? So like Glennis can't try to use the program and bring me in as a cosigner for her. Typically timelines are a little bit longer to close. And honestly, if you could get a credit from seller for closing costs, like you can really come out of pocket with very little money, right? Like a year ago, I would have said you'd still have to come in with at least 1 to maybe 2% of the purchase price. So let's say a $600,000 house, maybe you're coming in with $6 to $10 grand. Nowadays, you get Mama Theresa on there fighting and be like, look, we need 10 grand plus the washer and dryer. Right. And they're like, okay, didn't you just have one with the washer and dryer? Was that you? Where they left the washer and dryer? And they decided to leave the washer and dryer. I'm like, hey, free 99, I'll take it, right? I ain't picky.
It doesn't mean that they'll actually give you the closing costs. Sometimes they will say no, but we can try. And sometimes, depending on the seller, asking for closing costs can hurt your offer. So always think about it. I'm going to ask you, are you sure that's what you want to do? Because if you've gotten turned down for 5 offers, you might reconsider.
Yeah, everything's a negotiation. I'm one of those, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? So like I'll ask. But one of the good things about the M&M team is like they're very good at communicating with the listing agent, and you got to play the game. Like that's it. When you're making an offer on a house, you got to play the game. And so having somebody on your side that's willing to help you negotiate and get your offer accepted is really, really important. So this is some more on.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Do you guys, or maybe for Theresa, on the point question. Do you guys oftentimes like sell to the same, like say you have working with a seller, do you feed those listings to your customers that are looking to buy?
We will show, well, there is a clear cooperation policy that says that we must enter these things into the MLS. We don't do pocket listings. If that's the question. No, we don't do that. But usually, once we put it in the MLS, then yes, I distribute like my listings I have to my entire team. And if they have a buyer, it's like, hey, come on, bring me the buyer. But yeah, no pocket listings.
So just to kind of give you, I had a slide in there. My slide is gone. So main program is Cal HFA. It's run by the California Housing Authority, right? And so tells you a little bit about the must be your primary residence. Your minimum credit score is 660. You can use this on conventional and FHA. You can go up to $1 million sales price. I did have a slide in here that had a breakdown, but I don't know why it's gone. So I apologize. I'm going to blame it on Canva. Anybody use Canva? Yep, I'll blame it on Canva. So basically, if you're looking at, let's say, a $600,000 price home, with the Cal HFA, you can see here it says you can combine it with My Home and Zip. So this program actually comes with 2 additional pieces of financing. So on a $600,000 home, you would be able to get a $21,000 My Home, and then you'd be able to get like an $18,000 Zip. Right, so that. Sorry. So on a $600,000 property, the My Home purchase of that portion of that would be $21,000, and then the Zip portion of it would be $18,000. Right, so that's a total of $39,000 that you would get from this particular program, right? And then you can use that towards your down payment and closing costs, right? So that's kind of how it works. And again, there's different ways that we can structure it. Like there's a couple of different ways that we can structure this particular loan, but that's the max that they allow.
I think my question for you is if we submit our package to you and you start running the numbers and everything, will you like let us know and kind of do the calculations? Be like, okay, this is the program that you qualify for, this is the one you should do, et cetera, et cetera. No.
Why would I do? No, of course. Yeah. Hey.
Okay.
No, I'm a big believer you have to look at all your options.
Okay.
Right? Like I firmly believe one of the things I hate about my industry is that so many loan officers, you meet with them and they're like, well, here, you qualify for $600,000 or $800,000. Well, that's great. That's cool. But how do I know I can afford that payment? Right? How do I know I can afford the cash to close? Right? Like, what options do I have available to me as a first-time home buyer or as a veteran, right? Or I might say, hey, the VA loan's the greatest thing ever, but did I compare it to the FHA loan? Like, is it really the greatest thing ever, or is Joe just trying to sell me a bag of goods, right? Like, that's where you get the straight, honest Brooklynite New Yorker from me, because I'm like, here it is, right? And I let you make the decision, because at the end of the day, you're making the payment, right? So we try to look at all these different programs for you. I don't expect you to know every single program, right? That's why we're here, because we're tied into all of these different programs and how they work and the ins and outs of all of that goodness. Any questions on that?
No, but I want to say we trust Joe. I would say as a team, we do say our preferred lender. So we want you to go to Joe because we believe he's going to give you the best presentation of what you qualify for, and so you will know. And plus, we don't want you to purchase a home or get a loan that you're going to lose, the house, 3 months to a year from now. So,
yeah.
and that'll mess up his reputation, my reputation, or our team's reputation. So we want you all to know what you're getting into. That's why we're educating you here today.
Yeah.
And I've seen these reports, that Joe puts together, especially for the Cal HFA, the presentation of that report that goes out to the client, so they understand exactly what they're getting as their down payment. I mean,
yeah, if you like a good spreadsheet, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
I love me a good, I love a good spreadsheet.
So you know exactly what you're getting into, and that's what I'm trying to say. And so, and naturally, if you're a happy buyer, you're gonna tell other people about us. You're a realtor that helped you, you're a loan officer, you know, that helped you get the mortgage. And of course, that helps our business. But, you know, if you're dissatisfied with us, of course, it's the opposite is gonna happen. So we're not here just shucking and jiving, you know?
Yeah. And this is a lot of information, right? Like you guys, honestly, coming to something like this, you really learn how the process works. Like this isn't stuff you get on the internet, right? Like learning the whole escrow process and CCNRs. Who asked about CCNRs? Right? Like that. Yeah, that's like a question like you would never know to ask that, right? But things like that. So sitting here and learning this sort of stuff, because this is a really deep dive, right? Like we're going over a lot of stuff, but that's how you can learn. And whether you buy, like we've had people come to this and buy 6 months later, 2 months later, a year later, right? Like you don't know, but that's how you learn the process. You know what I mean?
Very well put, crash course.
Huh?
Very well put, crash course.
Yeah. I have a client right now that, you know, went to Joe, and then they came back and said, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and then we're gonna check back into in 6 months. And the other people that work with Joe, so I get a text every so many, I don't have to worry about it. So we reached out to so-and-so, you know, find out where they are, if they kept on the plan, you know, so to speak. And as soon as we hear from them, we'll let you know. And so that helps me, you know, especially in talking with my prospective client, you know, whether or not they've been staying on track.
Tell them, Mary.
You know, or you know, they've been slacking off.
Okay, come on, Joe.
Almost. It's funny. So funny story on that is a good friend of mine called me up to find out if he can get pre-approved, and he lives in Boston on the East Coast. And sure enough, he needed to work on his credit, and his name's Chris. I'm like, Chris, you got to work on your credit, man. Here's what you got to do. And I gave him a list, and we put him in our CRM, and like, I said, we're gonna call you in 6 months. He's like, all right, cool. And sure enough, somebody on my team called him in 6 months. I was like, so, Mr. Connor, how are you doing with your credit? He's like, I ain't even doing it. Tell Joe I'm a sucker. I'm a slacker, and I ain't doing nothing, but I need to do it. Can we call you in 6 months, Mr. Connor? Sure. Sure enough, we called him in 6 months. He calls me up. He goes, damn, your people are making me feel bad. He's like, dude, I ain't on it. I got stuff going on. Like, I keep blowing it to the side. I'm like, dude, you got to do it. Like, stay on it. So sure enough, I talked to him like a week ago. He's like, all right, we're going to buy. I'm getting my credit together, right? Like, but it's been a year and a half, and he's a good friend. I used to work with him in the mortgage business in like 07, 08. He got out. I stayed in. So it's a process, you know, it really is. So talking about a pre-approval, kind of going over what Brittany said, right, is what is a pre-approval and why is it important? So a pre-approval is where you go through all of your information, right? That's where you know how much you qualify for, what programs you qualify for, how much you're going to need for down payment, how much you're going to need for closing costs, and what goes into your monthly payment, right? I say the two most important pieces are your payment and your cash to close, not down payment. Because down payment is a fake number, right? If I say you got to put $30,000 down, that doesn't include closing costs. Right. So I always say cash to close, meaning if you need 50 grand cash to close and you have 60 grand in your bank, you're going to be left with 10 grand. Very clear. It's not like Joe's not going to leave you with 6 grand. Joe's going to leave you with 10 grand if that's what Joe tells you. But you're going to know what that cash to close is. And that's part of the pre-approval process. Yes, we run your credit. Yes, I'm going to ask you for the kitchen sink on documentation. Yes, it's going to be a little bit annoying and time consuming, but you will know exactly what you need to do to purchase a home, right? Whether it's
feel a lot better.
Whether it's 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 years, it don't matter. Like you got to know where you're at to know where you're going.
So in regards to the pre-approval, so it says run credit. Is that a soft pull or a hard pull?
Hard pull.
Hard pull. So how many times does your credit get run, like hard pulls?
Just one.
Within the buying and I guess up to closing of escrow when you.
So the credit. So that's a really great question. When the credit is run, it's good for 90 days. So if you find a home within 90 days, we're not going to run it again. If it's longer than 90 days, typically we'll run it again once you find a house.
Make sure you
But-
went shopping.
Make sure you didn't go buy an
Yeah,
RV.
go
I just had a client buy an RV. True story. She's like, I co-signed for my ex-husband's RV. And I was like, oh, that whole sentence was wrong. Your ex-husband co-signed RV.
Right.
I didn't even know what to say to her. And I was just like, and I tried to be empathetic. That is a true story, by the way. I cannot make that up, right? She's like, is that bad? And I'm like, how much is the payment? She's $11.46. And I go, no, that's not bad. She goes, it's not. I go, it's terrible. And she was like, I knew that was a bad idea. But she did it. But it'll give you all your numbers, right? So you know. And then the pre-approval is important because you can't think about yourself if you're selling your house, right? Somebody just walks into your house and says, I want to buy it. You're not going to sell it to them unless they show you that they're able to buy it. You're not going to take your house off the market and not take anybody else's offer unless you know that they are eligible to purchase your home.
Yes,
So
we're not gonna take you to look at a house.
yeah, I always use the car examples, right? Like I'm not looking at, Lamborghinis because I'm like, I might look at them, but I ain't gonna buy one, right? You want to know what you're gonna be comfortable. You can test drive it, but I ain't gonna do that. But it shows you're motivated. It shows you can shorten all those contingency periods that Theresa had talked about. And because at the end of the day, the seller just wants to sell their home.
Exactly.
Right? Oh, dang, look at that. It's telling me your time's almost up.
Uh-oh.
That's it, we're almost done.
You still look great though.
A little bit, I'm still doing all right.
Yeah, see, you still look
If you do decide to do an application or move forward to get pre-approval, we will give you a credit towards your closing costs at the time of closing. Just remind me that you came to the event and we'll make sure that we give you a credit. So that helps cover your appraisal costs and something like that. Because I know every little dollar counts, right? Like that's like some paint or whatever. So I appreciate you staying here with us and learning something. I'll hang around if you have some questions. If you're not following me, I'm at the Joe Soto.
Follow Joe.
Everywhere. My TikTok's on its way down, but and that's all I got. I appreciate you.